Okay. I'd like to call to order the October 29th, 2000 meeting, the Glendale City Council and Glendale Successor Agency at 3:18 p.m. And we have a roll call for the council.
Council members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Sinanian.
Here.
Mayor Weaver.
Here. And for the Successor Agency.
Board members: Friedman.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
Quintero.
Here.
Sinanian.
Here.
Chair Weaver.
Here. May we have your report?
The agenda for the October 29, 2013 joint public meeting of City Council and Successor Agency was posted on Thursday, October 24, 2013 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. And what's the first item?
First item is agency approval of minutes for the special Successor Agency meeting and joint City Council and Successor Agency meeting of Tuesday, October 8, 2013.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Okay, without comment, the minutes will stand approved as submitted. Next, please.
Next item on this agenda is Director of Economic Development regarding enforceable obligation implementation agreements for the proposed Lumley Lofts project to be located at the northwest corner of Wilson and Maryland.
This is a joint.
Still, if you allow me, we have an agency motion authorizing negotiation execution of enforceable obligation implementation agreement with the County of Los Angeles taxing entities, including Glendale Unified School District and Glendale Community College District. The B is council motion authorizing negotiation and execution of enforceable obligation implementation agreement with the County of Los Angeles taxing entities, including Glendale Unified School District and Glendale Community College District. C is council resolution approving $728,050 to provide funding for the payments to taxing entities to mitigate potential revenue impacts associated with amending the Lumley Lofts DDA.
Thank you. Mr. Cho.
Yes, sir. We have, interestingly, a complex project that ultimately was made more complex by the dissolution of redevelopment. We have at this point a true testament by way of a roadmap going forward that here at the local level, working with the county, the school district, and the Glendale Community College District, that the City of Glendale Successor Agency can find a way to still do economic development. Here to walk you through the details of the Lumley project as it is now configured is our Economic Development Director, Phil Lanzafame. Phil?
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council and the Successor Agency, the first few slides in our presentation give you a background, but this is the implementation of an agreement that you approved back in March of 2011. There's been, because of the dissolution of redevelopment, there's been some twists and turns, and so I want to just remind you of where we are today and the roadmap to going forward. The Lumley project was approved in 2011. We see this as an important northern anchor to the Art and Entertainment District. The original project had 5-screen Lumley Theater, 6,000 square feet of commercial, and 42 residential units. The final approved project added 45 on-site parking spaces and other amenities, transportation amenities, a shared car, a charging station for electric vehicles, bike lockers, all to promote transit other than your individual car. This is an aerial of the site. As you see, it's right at the north end of our Art and Entertainment District, which is along Maryland. This is the Alex Theater. This is the piece of property that the redevelopment agency owned and now the Successor Agency, and this is the piece that the city owns, which is improved as a parking lot. Again, some background. In March, you approved an agreement to share or to provide the land in $1.5 million of financial assistance for a use covenant for the theater. The city was going to contribute its lot to the project. As I said, the scope of development did not include on-site parking. In thinking through, we wanted to amend that and add some parking in those amenities. We did that, and it was approved, along with the city's approval of project entitlements in November of 2011. Unfortunately, this was right around the time that the Montesanos case, that was the AB 26 and 27, that would eliminate redevelopment. That was going on, and it was in front of the Supreme Court. We added the parking amenities and the additional contribution of $1.1 million, which was a split of the additional cost for that underground parking, subject to that case. The Supreme Court ruled against redevelopment, and so it did invalidate that amended and restated DDA from 2011. However, the project entitlements are from the city. Those are still valid. The original agreement to provide $1.5 million and the land is still an enforceable obligation. And in fact, the Department of Finance has recognized that as such. The ability to do the project through an amended redevelopment, amended and restated DDA, is really subject to the whole dissolution process. But there's a way to do that, and we've come up with this solution. The code allows us to amend our agreements if we can show a net benefit to the taxing entities. We did a financial analysis of this project being developed versus not, and just distributing the funds, and we found that there is in fact a $263,000 net benefit to the taxing agencies in the aggregate. Unfortunately, the lion's share goes to the city, and there's a loss to all the other taxing entities. Marty, would you bring up that? What I'm hoping this is big enough to see, but you all have a copy there in front of you as well. It's clearly not big enough, but if you can follow on the screen and then with your handout that you had, the analysis that we went through was to look at the value of the project after it was developed. So we took everything that we could come up with, the property tax, we brought it back to current value, sales tax that would be generated, the fees that would come from both the city and the school, and we added those all up and we came up with $3.896 million. Then we looked at, if we did not do the project, how much would we share, the taxing entities, how much would we share? And the tax increment that is going into this project is 2.6. That and the value of just the agency's parcel, it's a little over $1 million. And we concluded that if we don't do this project, the taxing entities split $3.6 million. So we reached the first hurdle and said there is a net benefit. And the second was to determine, well, who gets all the money that's generated. So what this first line shows is what all of the taxing entities would get if we build the project, in terms of property tax, in terms of sales tax. Now the county would earn about $107,000 in sales tax, but for purposes of this exercise, they don't consider that net new, and so we kept it out of the subtotal for them. But if we build the project, this is the amount that each of those taxing entities would receive, just through their normal receipt of property tax. Then we looked at if we didn't do the project and we split that $2.6 million, I'm sorry, 3.6, they would each receive this amount. So this minus this gives you that. And as you can see across the board, everybody's in the red zone but the city. That means that it's worse for them to develop the project. So what we have proposed is that we write a check to each of the taxing entities with the dollars that are generated from our share to make them whole. And so that whether we didn't do the project and just split up the money, or we did do the project and we paid them this delta, they would be whole and it would be the same. So there shouldn't be any reason for them to disagree. Artie, if you could go back then to the PowerPoint. So here it is in a table form, payments to the taxing entities. The city of Glendale generates about $854,000 if we do this project in property tax, fees, and other revenue. This is what we would share with the other taxing entities. The county's the biggest. The school district and the Glendale College both would receive their share, and others are a number of smaller county agencies. There's also this number for ERAF, that's the Educational Revenue Augmentation Fund. These are all these numbers that we used were net of that revenue that goes to the state to help backfill schools. That number is $228,000. We're not altogether sure how that gets paid, but we've identified it and know that it will need to get paid on behalf of all those other taxing entities. What the agreement calls for us to do is make this payment 180 days after the completion of the project, which we think is sometime in mid-2016. We're going to be asking for an appropriation today. We'll hold it in the account to look at what would the redevelopment agency or the city generate in residual redevelopment dollars. We've calculated about $4 million that will come to the city of Glendale in residual redevelopment between now and mid-June. That does not include additional funds that we would use to repay the city loan. These are purely the city's share of that former redevelopment dollars that were going to our redevelopment agency. These are the general business terms. I've pretty much gone through them. They won't change. The one thing that it has changed is that payment of 180 days following completion. The agreement that you have, the form of agreement that you have in your packet, asked for an appropriation within 180 days and then payment 180 days after that. Realistically, all the taxing entities are going to want to know that that money is appropriated and available now before they enter into this agreement. So we have agreed to that because we'll have this money, we'll generate this money back within the first year or so of residual revenue. These are our next steps. We hope to have all the taxing entities approved by Thanksgiving. We have an oversight board meeting scheduled in December, early December, and then it will go to the State Department of Finance. They typically have 60 days to render an opinion, a judgment on it. So we hope by February, first part of February, the developer knows that these funds are going to be made available and that he can go ahead and start his pre-development work and review, the construction plans and doing design plan review. We'll also be coming back to you on November 19th, for that amended and restated DDA that will add the $1.1 million in underground parking into the development agreement. At that time, we'll also be asking you to extend the approvals, the city approvals, on the design. Their actions today, again, are two resolutions. We really would like, based on, this is really fluid because we're dealing with 4 or 5 different taxing entities. We would like the authorization for the city manager to negotiate based on those business terms that we've outlined and the form of agreement, and then enter into those agreements with the separate taxing entities. We'll also be asking for an appropriation of $728,000 that would go into the project account but would not be spent until long after we have other funds that flow to the general fund. That concludes my report. Well, prepared to answer any questions.
Any questions? Mr. Najarian.
This is pretty complicated. I just want you to know that. And I've been reading this all weekend. Actually had a meeting with the city manager to try and understand it. And it's still very complicated. Let me just put a couple of the questions I have. Let's go back to, I think, slide.
I'm sorry, I didn't know how to format the slide numbers on
All
there.
right, well, let's get to the one where you, I guess it's the spreadsheet, where you have the spreadsheet up there.
That spreadsheet, please.
Okay, so the threshold analysis is up in the top. You're saying that the project, if completed, has to provide a net gain compared to not doing the project. Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay, so you're comparing the very top, the revenue, tax and fee offsets, property tax, the sales tax, the impact fees, city fees, and we get to a number of 3.896.
Correct.
So we're saying then that that has to be greater, doing the project has to be greater than not doing the project. So when we went to the let's look at the line that says Panda Inn land sale. How did we get that number? I mean, because you're pretty close. I mean, 3.89 is pretty close to 3.6. So we're getting close here. So how did we get the number at $1,033,000 for the Panda Inn land sale?
We, as your staff, we did our own calculation of a sales approach. It's a single building. We know what the rent is, the actual rent, and we even bumped it by about 10%. To get to a market rate. And then we applied a discount rate, a cap rate to that annual income, and we came up with that dollar amount. And we also checked that against some recent comparable sales and an evaluation we had on a piece of vacant property at the corner of Wilson and Central. This figure here of $1,033,000, land only, is about $241 a square foot for land only, or based on land, the land area. Those appraisals were ranging from 175 to 220. So we figured we use that as a check and balance, adjusting for size and location. We think that number is appropriate.
And that was done recently? Was that a recent analysis?
The appraisals were done recently. This analysis was performed maybe a year ago, about a year ago. But still, the rents are about where they are.
So are we looking at land? You're talking about, I just heard you talking about two different appraisal methods. One is comparable for raw land. The other is a cap rate based on the income that restaurant is bringing.
Check
So-
against one another.
This $1,033,000 is based on an income approach. We capped the revenue. We just checked are we in the right ballpark by looking at, based on land only, what are current sales out there? What's at a current appraisal? And that appraisal is less than 30 days old.
Okay.
So we figured that we were in the right, we did it the right way.
Okay. And has that analysis that you just did pass muster with the Department of Finance?
We have brought this to the Department of Finance, the concept, and they didn't have a detailed look at it. It was all subject to entering into these tax sharing agreements. We have run this by the county and the administrator's office, staff in the administrator's office understands it. They're in agreement with the numbers and are beginning to present that to their supervisors. We've run it by the school district staff and the college staff. They are in agreement with the numbers at the staff level. Now, all of those entities are represented in the oversight board, which has approved this concept and, to some extent, these numbers.
Is anyone going to go back and look at those figures before they give the okay to this deal? Or has that already been approved? When I say those figures, I'm talking about the threshold question that the project is going to throw off more revenue than if there's no project and the items are sold.
The staffs of all of those entities have agreed with us that those are the correct numbers to use. Now, I will say that the agreement acknowledges these are estimates, and if the project overperforms or underperforms, there's not a change. We're all going into this to say, this is what we believe is the right number today.
Okay.
And we're all going to agree to that.
Okay. The next question I have is, I think on another slide you talked about the residual redevelopment value is going to give us $4 million.
Yes.
And what is that?
That is, I don't have a slide there, but when we did our cash flow and we included all of our, the savings from the bonds that we're just now refunding and additional development that's taking place, what is going to flow through to the city for repaying its loan, and then what would flow through to the city as a regular taxing entity. And when we look at that, the number is I have a copy here. It's $755,000. It's about $1.3 million in the first year, which is 14, and then it goes up from there. It's about $1.5 million, and then about $1.6 million after that. Total by the time you get to June 2014 is about $4 million. And as I said, that's in addition to what we would be able to repay the city's loan, dollars we would get to repay the city's loan.
Okay. You mentioned the ERAF, that $228,000 payment that has to be made. Did you say we haven't figured out how we're going to pay that back yet, or that's already in the schedule?
It's something that we will most likely be giving to the auditor controller to distribute to the ERAF fund, to the, I should say, ERAF.
So we have we've calculated and taken into account that has to be paid. How it will be distributed to ERAF is the auditor or someone else.
That's correct.
Okay. So I just want to say, I had voted for this project back in March of 2011. The situation since March of 2011 has changed dramatically downtown. In 2011, we were dying. Let me not use that word. We were highly motivated to bring in a project such as the Lemley, which would bring in additional residents downtown. We did not have any of these other projects, I think even on the drawing board. We're offering the land, we're offering 1.5 in the for the construction, and we were throwing in half of the cost for the underground parking, which is 1.1. I don't know if I would vote for this project today if this came to me as a new project. In fact, I probably would not vote for it today. The reason is I think we are saturated downtown. However, that's not the issue before us today. But I want everyone to know that my vote for these terms and approving us to go forward is maintaining the obligation and the commitment we made to Mark Nathanson and Greg Lemley over 2.5 years ago. So I don't want anyone to think that I'm changing my stripes on this type of downtown development, but it was a commitment. This was really the first one that was up there. Maybe the downtown, the Broadway lofts were sort of going concurrently, but my vote to approve these terms is merely maintaining my commitment that was made over 2.5 years ago. Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Mr. Gunther?
Yeah, I continue to support the project, continue to support downtown housing that's finally coming online. But specifically this project, what interests me is the Lemley. Well, also that the Panda Inn appears to be is going to be a tenant of the project, so that's great. I think that serves a lot of people. But the Lemley itself, to me, is very important. As you know, we just inaugurated I guess it's called 5-Star Cinema, and so I think this will give it a little synergy. They're certainly after a different market with the foreign films that they do, and sort of films that don't normally go to first-run type of theaters. So I'm very excited about it. Financially, it certainly works out for all of the entities, from the school district to the college, and I hope that we can continue to put it together. It is very complicated. It's not easy to move forward with the loss of redevelopment, but I think it's worth to continue to pursue it.
Any other comments? Is there a motion?
I'll move
2A, B, and C?
2A, A, and C.
First is a board.
Excuse me?
I'll move it for the agency first.
Second.
Oh, sorry. And consistent with my vote 2.5 years ago, I will be voting against it. Roll call.
Board members Freeman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Harrow,
Yes.
Nanyan,
Yes.
Chair Weaver.
No.
I will move it for the council.
Second.
Roll call.
Council members Freeman,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Harrow,
Yes.
Nanyan,
Yes.
Chair Weaver.
No. Okay. With that, is there a motion adjourned for the successor agency
So moved.
Second.
and a motion for the council
So moved.
Second.
adjourned at 3:42. 42. Thank you.